Okay, people, first, welcome. I am Arknoangel Banesong, and I will be your sensei for this dojo class, which is EW, also known as Electronic Warfare. It's going to be mostly 101, but I'm going to extend it a bit, because last time there was a few questions about tackle, so I will cover that also rapidly. Okay, so Electronic Warfare. The easiest way to show it is to show it on screen with the fitting screens. So this frigate is a crucifier, which should be well known. It's the EWAR Electronic Warfare frigate. So what is under Electronic Warfare? Well, as you can see, quite a bit. I'm not going to cover in depth everything in that list. I'm going to cover very rapidly the webifiers and warp disruptor, web scrambler, and also the ECM burst, because they are a bit more advanced and they should be developed more in a tackle class. So I'm going to begin with the two easiest Electronic Warfare that can be explained. So EWAR Electronic Warfare, because it's a crucifier, and crucifier is the EWAR Electronic Warfare frigate, is based upon weapon disruptors. Weapon disruptors is one of the two easiest Electronic Warfare to use. Why is it easy to use? Because basically you target the enemy, you turn the fittings on, and it's working. That's it. There is no special skill involved. And talking about skills, the skills involved for Electronic Warfare, which are all in electronic system, are very easy to train. You don't have to train it to level 5, which is the first good point, because level 5, as you should know, are very long to train. For Electronic Warfare, you need, of course, level 4 in Electronic Warfare itself, and also frequency modulation and long distance jamming. Those are support skills. Basically, these three skills are the core skills, which you will use for all Electronic Warfare. Whatever the type you use, you will use those three skills. Then you have two more specialized skills per type. For weapon disruption, you need weapon disruption 4 and weapon destabilization 4. Weapon disruption is the basic one. It's not really useful, but you need it level 4 in order to unlock the weapon destabilization. Weapon destabilization is the one you want, because it increases the effect of the weapon disruption module. And it's going to be the same for all Electronic Warfare. 3 core skills and 2 more specialized skills. So, weapon disruption. There are 2 types of weapon disruption. There are the guidance disruptor and the tracking disruptor. After that, you know, there are all the meta variation and of course the T2 version. But basically they do the same thing. It's just that tracking disruptors work on enemy turrets and guidance disruptor work on enemy missiles. And that's it. If it's not a missile, it means that the normal tracking disruptor works, and if it's any type of missile, then guidance. But what they do is the same. So, tracking disruptors, as you can see, without any script, what it inflicts on the enemy is maluses of well, here 27%, but it's going to vary of depending your skills and your, of course, ship skills. But basically what it does is it reduces the enemy range and tracking speed bonus. And of course, there are two types of script. One which will improve the tracking speed disruption, which means that the enemy won't be able to track you, and one that reduces the optimal range. In practical terms, what does it mean? It means that when you fire a tracking disruptor at an enemy ship, you can either reduce its range by quite a lot, as you can see here, something like 50%, which is quite a lot, and you can also notice that you can do it at very long range. Of course, it's a fit for very long range electronic warfare, and electronic warfare is usually best done at range, because well, if you are too close to the enemies, they are going to kill you because they don't like it when you, well, disrupt them. So basically what it does is it reduces the enemy range by 50%, which means that if they have a range of, say, 50 kilometers, it's going to be something like 25 kilometers, which is exceptionally important, because if you are in a big fleet and both fleets are fighting at their maximum range and you reduce that range, it means that they are no longer able to fire, and you can cancel any type of gun with it, even the dreadnought. So dreadnought have some kind of resistance, so you have to put at least 2 weapon disruptor on one dreadnought in order to prevent it from firing. That's for long range engagement. If you are at short range, then you are going to want to use the tracking speed disruptors. The tracking speed disruptor will reduce the enemy tracking by 50%. If you know how tracking works, basically it's the speed at which the turrets will try, to follow you, track you as you orbit them. And if you are at close range and you reduce the enemy tracking speed by 50%, it means that they won't be able to hit you or your fleetmate at all. So basically it's all a question of range for the script. At long range, use the optimal range script description, and at short range, use the tracking speed. Well, for a 101, of course, there will be exception and special case, but usually it's a good rule of thumb. The variant for missiles will basically do the same things with just a very little difference. Because missiles works just a bit differently from guns and turrets. So basically, the two ways the missile disruptor works is, the first one is absolutely the same. So if you put the missile range script, it's not going to be written, 50%, but basically, since it reduces the missile velocity and flight time by 26%, if you add it, it means that the enemy missile range is going to be reduced by 52%. So basically, it's exactly the same as with turrets, but with missiles. What it means is that it's very important, if you use a crucifier or any type of weapon disruption, ask before you go, what type of weapons the enemy is using, because if they are using missiles, you want to use guidance disruptor, and if they are using turrets, you want to use the tracking disruptors, because if you are fighting a full missile enemy fleet and you only have tracking disruptor, you are not going to be useful at all. So ask information, because information is key for winning in EVE. The second type of script is a bit different, because as you should know, missiles can't miss, which means that you cannot disrupt the tracking of a missile so that it misses. So what this script is going to do is it's going to reduce basically explosion bonus and explosion velocity, but what it means in practical terms is if you are moving, if your ship is not immobile, then by using this script you will reduce the enemy damage with these missiles, because you can't make a missile miss, but you can make it basically have a smaller explosion with a smaller explosion velocity, which means that it will apply less damage to you. So well, it's a little difference, but it's important to know. Okay, so I was showing you a crucifier, and as you could see, crucifier. So crucifier are the electronic warfare from AMAR frigates, and as you can see, it has bonuses for weapon disruptor, which is what you want when you are flying. Well, for electronic warfare, you want your ship to have those kind of bonus. The crucifier is really efficient because it has the best bonus right out of the box. So for each level of AMAR frigates bonus, you are going to have 7.5% to the effectiveness, which means that you are going to reduce the enemy tracking or range by more, and 10% to the weapon disruptor optimal range, which is also important because if your optimal range is not really high and you are trying to disrupt the enemy at too long a range, it means that you are going to apply less of the effect. But since the crucifier has plus 10% to optimal range per level, it means that, as you can see, on a range of 161 kilometers, the optimal range is 130, which frankly is absolutely awesome, because at 130 kilometers you will apply full effectiveness of your weapon disruption, and you still can do it with 30 kilometers more, but well, it's going to have a little reduced effect. But it's very important to know that optimal range means optimal effect at those long range. So the crucifier is one of the best for AMAR. They also have a cruiser, which is the arbitrator. The arbitrator is, well, less efficient, let's say, for weapon disruptor at long range, because as you can see, it only has the bonuses to weapon disruption effectiveness. The other bonus is for drones, which is very good. I love drones, and I will make a class explaining drones after, but it means that the arbitrator won't have the same range as a crucifier. So if you are joining a fleet and you want to help and you know it's going to be a long range, use the crucifier. I'm not going to cover the T2 version because, well, they are very different and require higher skills, and the objective of this class is to have the 101 of electronic warfare and how to be useful in a big fleet even if you have only 2 days training. Because yes, with only 2 or 3 days of training, you can fly a crucifier, you can have trained the weapon disruption at least at level 3, and basically you can mess the enemy, because if one crucifier, and as you can see mine is, well, it's very 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 cheap, it's basically 1 or 2 million ISK, which is nothing, and with this ship I can cancel up to 3, let's say Bargest or Nightmare, and those ships cost 6 billion, which means that even with 3 or 4 days of skill you can cancel 3 enemy ships which are worth billions. That's how powerful electronic warfare is. So even if you think you can't, participate in fleet because you can't fly the doctrine ship, you can fly this, and as they say in the MOTD, you can make the enemy DPS cry, and believe me, they will cry when they can't shoot. So that's it for the crucifier. The second easiest electronic warfare in the game is dampeners. Remote sensor dampeners. But everyone will just call it damp because it's too long, and frankly just damp, you know what it does. Dampeners are really easy to use too. What it does is reduce the enemy locking range. I'm going to change ship to show you. So I have quite a bunch of Moluses. So, little Moluses, this is the Galante electronic warfare frigates, and it's going to apply dampen on the enemy. Dampeners have two types of effect on the enemy. They have a scan resolution bonus and maximum targeting range. Almost 80% of the time, you will use just the maximum targeting range electronic warfare, because scan resolution maluses that you apply to the enemy is basically that they will take longer time to lock. It can be useful, but it requires you to know exactly which type of target you want. Whereas when you use the script for targeting range, it's very easy. The enemy lose almost 50% of targeting range bonus, which means that if they have 100 kilometers of targeting range, they now only have 50 kilometers, which means that also they can't shoot because they have lost lock. So again, it's for long range electronic warfare, and it's very easy to use. The good thing is you don't have to know if it's missiles or if it's turrets. Basically, you don't have to know anything because you just apply on the enemy, they lose lock, you win. That's it. The only weakness of the Moluses, as you're going to see, where is it? Is here, is that it doesn't have the same very nice bonus the Crucifier has. Yes, it has the 7.5% per level to effectiveness, which is great. It means that it's going to reduce the enemy targeting range by a lot. But its other bonus is activation cost, which frankly, yes, it's kinda nice, but yeah, you don't care. What you want is more range. So the Moluses is going to be efficient for, let's say, medium range engagement, which is 100 kilometers or so maximum. Because even when I push it quite a lot, I only have a targeting range of 126, and the range of my phased are only 130, and the optimal range, as you can see, is only 60 kilometers. So this is half the optimal range of the Crucifier. So this means that you are not going to apply the maximum of minus 50% targeting range bonus to the enemy, and most likely if you do it at max range, you will apply only half of that, so 25% reduction to target range. It is still nice, but it is less efficient than the Crucifier. So it's easy to apply, you don't have to think how to apply it, you just apply it. But since it's going to lose its effect, you're going to want to double, basically put 2 dampeners on one enemy ship if you are at long range to have the same effect as just one weapon disruptor with the Crucifier. I'm also going to the Crucifier, I told you the objective was to make the enemy DPS cry. Well, with the Moluses you can also make the enemy DPS cry because they lost lock, but the most important thing to use with those would be to target the enemy controllers, which is fast tackle, long range tackle, or long range web. I will be showing very quickly what it is. Well, fast tackle is quite self-explanatory. It's just, fast frigates or interceptors, and for long range web there are hyenas and rapier. Well, those are T2 ships, so I'm not going to cover much, but basically there are ships who have very long range with tackle or web, and if you use dampeners of them, it means they won't be able to use those things which would frankly kill your fleet mates. So the first priority target when you fly mollusks and you have dampeners is those kind of long range tackle and long range rainbow fire, because they will save your fleet. But if you don't have any of that type of target, just target the enemy DPS battleships and it will work. So as I said, usually you will have to use both on one, because they are at long range and the mollusks don't have that much optimal range bonuses. The second ship which uses dampeners, which is Galante, because as you have deduced, each type of, well, the 4 factions have one type of preferred electronic warfare. So for Galante it's dampeners. They also have a cruiser, and that cruiser is very good because it has the bonuses that the mollusks are lacking. So it still has the 7.5% bonuses to remote sensor dampeners effectiveness, still good, but it also has the bonuses to optimal range and fall off, which means that I'm going to show you. The nice little Celestis. It's going to have 200 kilometers and 91 kilometers of optimal range, which is better than the simple, well, mollusks. It has more range, which is always nice to have. Well, I'm also using T2, but that's not really the problem right here. So the Celestis is of course more pricey and require more skills than the mollusks, but if you have the ISK and you are in a big fleet and you still want to use electronic warfare, yeah, try to use the Celestis. The next type of electronic warfare is the Vigil, which I think many of you have heard about because Fleet FC asked for Vigil. They use Target Painter. I'm not going to give as much details about Target Painter because it is electronic warfare, but it is not defensive electronic warfare. It is offensive electronic warfare. And what it does is basically increase the enemy signature. So I'm going to show you. Target painters. So target painters will increase the enemy signature. I'm not going to give the in-depth definition on what enemy signature radius is, but basically the bigger your signature, the more easy you are to hit and the more damage you will take. It's an oversimplification, but basically that's how it works. So when you are in a fleet and the FC asks to use Vigil and Target Painter on the enemy, what it does is it will make the enemy easier to hit for your whole fleet. Yes, because Target Painter increases the enemy signature for everyone and not just you. That's very important to know. And it means that the whole fleet is going to hit better. And yeah, basically that's it for Target Painter. There is also a more in-depth explanation because missiles interact with Target Painter, and if you want your bigger missiles to hit the enemy better, you need to use Target Painter, because the bigger the enemy signature, the more your missile will apply damage. But I'm not going to give a whole class about Target Painter and missiles. Okay, that's it for the easy part of electronic warfare. Do you have any question before I go to the more complicated part? To answer you, Roger, you will almost never use module unscripted because you want the maximum effect, and the only way to use the maximum effect of electronic warfare is to have a script in it, because otherwise you're giving some sort of half-hearted maluses to the enemy, and that's not going to be enough. So it's way better to use a script and use a rule of thumb, as I told you, basically optimal range most of the time at long range, and the other type when you are at short range. If there is no other question, I'm going to go to maybe the most powerful electronic warfare, but also the most complicated and the most complex to use. So let's talk about ECM, electronic countermeasure. This is a specialty of Caldari and of the good old Griffin. I think many of you know the good old Griffin, but what it does is a bit complicated, so I'm going to explain it here. No, don't want to mark it. So there are 5 types of ECM, but I'm going to simplify that. As you can see, each of those types have a color. So gravimetric is blue, laser is red, magnetometrics is green, well, multispectrum has no color, and radar is yellow. And if you know the color of the different faction empire, then it's going to be very easy. So basically, any Amar ship is considered to be yellow, so you are going to use radar jammers against Amar ships. Multispectrum jammers you are almost never going to use, because basically, since they are supposed to be efficient against all type, it means that they are bad against all type. Magnetometrics jammers are green, just like the color of Galante. Radar are red, just like the color of Minmatar, and gravimetric is blue, just like the color of Caldari. So the first thing to know is when you are using ECM, you want to use the right color on the right enemy ship. And then that's where it gets a bit complicated, but I'm also going to simplify it a bit. So basically, what it means is that each type of ECM is going to have a huge value of jamming strength against its type. So here, it's a laser ECM, so which means that it's going to apply 8.7 to Minmatar enemy ships, but only 2.9 against the other types. So unless you have no choice, only apply the right color to the right type of enemies. Now, ECM is not 100% chance, not like dampeners and all the other electronic warfare we talked about, which was 100% chance. You click on the enemy which is locked, it works. ECM is a matter of probability and enemy resistance. It's mathematics basically. But, simple version, if you are flying a Griffin and you are in range of an enemy minmatar ship, you use the red ECM on the enemy. And then you're going to have a chance, a random chance, of actually applying the ECM to the enemy. What does it do? It's a bit complicated too, but basically what it does is the enemy you apply the ECM on will lose lock to every ships it had locked, except you, and it won't be able to lock any type of ship for 10 to 15 seconds, but it will always be able to target you. So ECM is incredibly powerful because the enemy has lost all lock. But since it's only able to target you, believe me, they will target you and they will try to shoot you and kill you because they want to be able to target. So it's incredibly powerful and incredibly dangerous, which means that you need to either outrange the enemy, so that basically it can lock you but it cannot fire on you, or you need to evade the enemy using afterburners and, you know, orbiting the enemy. But basically it's incredibly powerful, but it's incredibly dangerous. Which is why ECM is best applied on enemy Logi. Why? Because if a Logi cannot target anything but you, it's useless, because a Logi, as you should know, needs to target its fleetmate in order to repair them. But if you have ECM'd the enemy Logi, it can only target you, but since it has no weapons, it won't be able to fire on you. So the Griffin best weapon is against enemy Logi. You want to always target the enemy Logi first. Second most important target will be the enemy electronic warfare, because if a crucifier, you ECM it with the yellow, because crucifier is from Hammer. If you ECM the enemy electronic warfare, it will only be able to target you, which means that they won't be able to do much. Be very careful, because this is not true for the dampeners, because if you ECM an enemy Molluses, it's going to dampen you, and if it's going to dampen you, you are going to lose lock, because, well, it's going to win this duel, basically. So be very careful. Yes, ECM is extremely powerful, but it's also very dangerous. So if you target an enemy DPS with ECM, be very careful to be either out of range or to be, well, at least aware that the DPS is going to target you and you are mostly likely to die. So ECM, remember the enemy colors. So before you go in the fleet, let's say, you know, it's a big fleet engagement and the enemy are going to use armor ships or things, and the FC, you ask the FC what the enemy is going to fly. If they are going to fly Guardians, just put all yellow or yellow and red, basically, because they usually have also shield ship, which means that they are main matters. But basically, if you are flying in a small fleet, just use, as we call it, the rainbow configuration, which is one of each type of ECM. But if you are fighting a huge fleet of all the same type of ship, and they are all using the same type of Logi, ask your FC, ask intelligence, and use only one color. So that way you will be able to cancel 4 enemy Logis, or 4 enemy electronic warfare, which is extremely powerful. The reason why you won't use multispectrum is because the multispectrum, I'm going to show it here. The multispectrum has 5.8 of jamming strength against everything, which is way less than the 8.7 that you have when you target the good type. So if you are not flying Griffin, if you are flying something else, and you have only one slot, and you want somehow to use ECM, then yes, use multispectrum. But if you are in a Griffin, use the rainbow or the specialized type configuration, because the lower the value, because just to make a point, you can see that each type of ship has, under targeting, a value. So I'm flying Griffin, it has a value of, let's say, 19 point in gravimetric sensors. What it means is that it's mathematics, I'm sorry. But basically you apply 8.7 versus 19. I'm going to simplify it. Basically it means that your ECM has 50% chance of working, which is good. But if you apply only 6, then you only have 30% chance of working. Okay. There is also the ECM burst, but the ECM burst is a very specialized tool, and it's not at all in the 101 class because it's an advanced tool. So I won't be covering the ECM burst. So just to show that there is another ship besides the Griffin that can do ECM, well, two actually, because Caldari is special in that sense for ECM. Where is the Blackbird? Yes. So the Blackbird, just like the Celestis for Galante, has better bonuses to ECM, which means better range and kind of better strength. Well, technically no, it has the exact same strength, but it has better range. And just like every other type of electronic warfare, if you are not at the optimal range of your, well, inside the optimal range, because if you are closer it works just as well, but since it has bonus to optimal range and fall off, it means that you will be able to use ECM at longer range and maybe well, outrange the enemy guns, which is always nice. But it's also important because, as you should know, when you fight enemy logi, they tend to be to the rear of the fight, which means that you need a bit more range to target and ECM the enemy logi. So Blackbird are very good too, but as always they cost much more. The special, let's say the special treat of Caldari is that they are the only one in the game to have a battleship which is electronic warfare. So the Scorpion is the only battleship which does ECM, and they have absolutely stupid range because, as you can see, they have a bonus of 25% to optimal range of fall off per level, which means that Scorpions will be able to ECM at absolutely absurd range, something like, 200 kilometers. Which is extremely powerful, but it also means that the enemy, when they see a Scorpion, they will go, "Ooh, Scorpion, kill it!" Which means that the Scorpion are usually the first to die. So be warned, if you want to fly a Scorpion in a huge fleet, yes, you are going to be very useful, but your chance of survival are very, very, very low. So you have been warned. So the Scorpion is really a fun ship. So it is, well, way big and way not fast. So think a bit before using it. Especially since, as you should know, since the bonus for all those type of ship are per level, it's way easier to be Griffin level 5, well, Caldari frigate level 5, than it is to be Caldari battleship level 5. Okay, that's it for the, let's say, traditional electronic warfare. I'm going to cover, well, a bit quickly because I don't want to go into detail, the other type of electronic warfare, which are tackle. Tackle covers 3 types of electronic warfare. The most known tackle is the warp scramblers and warp disruptors. Warp scramblers are the only ones that are called tackle because they prevent the enemy both from warping and from using a micro warp drive, but they have the shorter range, which means that they, well, even with a T2, you can see that its optimal range is only 9 kilometers, which is why when someone has tackle, you know that he is using a warp scrambler on the enemy at short range, which means that most likely he's going to die fast, so you have to act fast. The warp disruptor is also called point. It's a point because basically it's very long range, contrary to the warp disruptor. The warp disruptor or point has 24 kilometers range, which means that it's much more safe, let's say, to use. It will also prevent the enemy from warping, but since it's only a point, it is not going to be able to prevent the enemy from using a micro warp drive, which means that even if you point someone and it is faster than you, it's going to outrange you and then you are going to lose point. So it's very important to know the difference between point, long range, but doesn't prevent the enemy from fleeing, from tackle, which basically means the enemy is stuck unless he is overprop, but I'm not going to go into tackle detail. The last type of electronic warfare, which is also included in tackle, is webifiers. Webifiers are quite easy to understand. Basically what they do is they reduce the enemy speed. Status webifier will reduce the T2, will reduce the enemy speed by 60%, but at a short range of 10 kilometers. The other effect of the webifier is also that it will make the enemy easier to hit, because since you have reduced its speed, it means it will reduce its evasion or its lateral speed, and it means that everyone will be able to hit better. So in duel, usually, if you use a web or two web, it means that the enemy won't be able to, well, escape your guns.
Do you remember if the warp scrambler prevents using the micro jump drive also?
Yes, it prevents also the micro jump drive, and it also prevents bush, which means that if you want to bush an enemy ship, don't tackle it, just point him, because if you scramble it, you can do nothing, which means no micro warp drive, no micro jump, and no bush. Okay, I've mostly covered. I'm just going to show very quickly that for tackle, just as there is, electronic warfare ship, there are also tackling frigate T1, which has usually, well, as you can see with the Condor, a roll bonus of 80% in propulsion jamming system activation cost, or it's something like, I think that's all Caldari has. Yes, Caldari has that. So it's the Condor for Caldari, the Atron for Galante, because well, basically they all have the same bonuses, but basically if you see a T1 frigate which roll bonus 80% reduction in propulsion jamming system activation cost, basically it's what we call fast tackle, because they are fast, but they are also, well, very, very likely to die, as anyone who has tried tackling will know.
Could you go through again the type of EWAR is best to use in certain engagement sizes or in certain sized fleet combat?
Okay, yes, I can do that. So, in short, if you are flying Crucifier and using weapon disruption, rule of thumb is, I'm going to go in Crucifier. If you are at long range, use the optimal range disruption script, and that's the same with dampeners. Use range script. If you are at short range, you use the tracking speed disruption script, and with dampeners you will use the enemy target resolution script. Basically that's it, because ECM, the range does not matter, and target painter range does not matter either, so that's only for weapon disruption and for dampeners. Also, it is the same as I explained for missiles. For missiles, you use guidance disruptors, and with guidance disruptors at long range you will use missile range disruptors script, and at short range you will use the missile precision script. Well, if that's all the question, I'm going to stop the recording.